Today, I want to talk a little bit about grief as we look at the song for this week. It's a song entitled A Song for the Mourning, and it's one of the very earliest Mercy songs. And it reminds me of grief because it was written at the time that we lost the first member of our community. Her name was Tanya, and she made her home in an alleyway back behind the old open door community and an apartment complex. There's an alley that cuts through our neighborhood. We often walk it on Good Friday as kind of our community Via Dolorosa. It's a path in which many of our friends, many of our loved ones, many of our sisters and brothers make a home or find a place of refuge. And Tanya did. Tanya lived there and Tanya died there. And so when it came time to celebrate her life and to grieve her passing, I was working on this particular song at that time. And it just began to take on a meaning of grief as I myself was trying to process the grief of losing one of our first community members. The song itself is really a kind of psalm. It's a kind of lament, but it's also hopeful in the way that so often, the psalms are. It speaks truth. It speaks real. It's authentic in its grief and in its lament, but at the same time, there's a real place of hope in the song, and I think that's important for us. We don't get to hope. We don't get to the place of hopefulness without first passing through the process of grief. Grief is something that we often try to avoid at all costs. We don't want to grieve. But the truth is, grief is a healing process for all of us. We all experience loss. Perhaps it's death. Perhaps it's the loss of our physical ability. Perhaps it's the loss of home or other relationships. There's so many things that we lose as part of our lives as human beings. This is just something that's true. It's not something that any of us like, but it's just true. And grief is a gift of God. Grief is a gift that comes to help us heal from the losses that we experience. And if we don't grieve, if we deny it, if we pretend that we're okay, when the truth is we know that we're not okay, then grief will find ways to express itself that aren't healthy. But if we choose to embrace grief as a friend, as we choose to recognize that this is part of what we have to do in order to heal, then grief can become that process by which we become whole. And so this song for me was a part of my own grieving process. And I think you can hear it in the lyrics. I sing to you a song of the morning. I bring to you my stammering praise. It's not always eloquent. We don't always have the words to praise our God. I come to you, I'm bruised and I'm broken, right? I'm not coming to you proud, God. I'm not coming to you with my Sunday best on. I'm not coming to you saying, hey, look what I've done. I'm coming to you hurt, and I'm coming to you in need of healing. But the hope in this song is the poor in spirit, those who've been crushed in their hearts, who've experienced the challenges and the suffering of life, are never cast away. In fact, we are most welcome in God's presence. And then it moves to the chorus. No, you never cast us away. A bruised reed, coming from the prophets and speaking of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. A bruised reed you will not break, because your love is never ending. That's the eternal, everlasting love of God. It's the love of 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul says, love never fails. It never comes short. It never runs out. It's always enough. And we make our home. We dwell. We can put down ourselves and establish ourselves in the grace of God. And then the second verse comes out of Hebrews. It's one of my favorite passages in Hebrews where it talks about how before God, we're naked. There's nothing we can hide. And the imagery of that verse, because then it goes on and it talks about how we are coming before the throne of the universe. We're coming before the throne of God Almighty. And we discover that the throne of God Almighty is a throne that is itself established in grace. So even when I'm bruised and broken, when I'm naked and you can see everything there is to see about me, I can come boldly. I can come without shame to the God who loves me, to the God who loves you. We can come boldly to the throne of the universe because it's founded in grace. And there we can behold our beloved. We can behold our God who created us in God's love for us, face to face, without shame. And that becomes the place where we can find healing. But y'all, we've lost a lot of folks this year. 6 people, and I just got word this week that we've lost a 7th member of our community. Only one to COVID, but others to the streets. One of the saints that we lost this year is Murphy Davis. She was a co-founder of the Open Door community that has been so inspirational in my life and so inspirational in the life of others and so meaningful in the lives of our community and folks on the streets in this Ponce Highland area and all throughout the city of Atlanta and really all throughout the world. Murphy Davis said, homelessness is a death sentence. Homelessness is a death sentence. And the longer I've done this work, and the longer I've worked with my people, the more I realize how true Murphy's words were. Homelessness kills us. Human beings were not created to live on the streets. Housing is a human right. As a community, we owe it to our sisters and brothers. We owe it to our neighbors. If we mean anything by the commandment that Jesus gives us to love our neighbor as ourselves, then we have to know that it means fundamentally at least housing, at least a place to be, so that living doesn't become a death sentence, so that living can thrive, so that we as human beings can have life, and as Jesus promised it, that more abundantly. Now, we tell the stories of those that we've lost. We grieve as a community, and we're a truthful community. We don't say all the good things only. We tell some of the not so good things. But all of that is part of the human experience. And as we have grieved together this year as a community, we invite you also to join us in grieving. Not because we want you to be sad, but we want you to be whole. The only way we get to wholeness, the only way we get to the place of hope is through the process of grief. So tell stories of those that you've loved and those that you've lost. Don't be afraid to confront the things that cause you pain. Don't choose the way of numbing yourself. That's the pathway to addiction. Choose the way of opening yourself to the God of grace who will never cast us away.